We'll get to all that in a second. The Los Angeles Lakers. Nobody wants to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers, but when they do things like
Adrian
this...
Wojnarowski tweeted that the Lakers are going to be firing you, a decision they'll let you know tomorrow. Have you communicated with the front office at all about your future? And I guess what's your reaction to hearing that?
My reaction is I haven't been told.
That was yesterday, of course. News of the day from Los Angeles. Frank Vogel and the team parting ways with a thank you tweet. It's almost like it's a franchise that has missed the playoffs 7 of the last 9 seasons. Here's LeBron James' exit interview this morning.
I mean, it's not failure, though. Listen, we came to work every single day, put our hard hats on, and we try to get better every day. And the result just didn't happen for us.
National panel, I say again, nobody wants to talk about these Los Angeles Lakers, but Clinton Yates, the floor is yours.
It's one thing to be moribund. It's another thing to be unsuccessful. It's a third thing to be chaotic, and that is the state of the Lakers right now. You can't have what unfolded in last night's press conference unfold and expect anybody to want to walk in to your building and say, oh, yeah, this looks like a leadership situation I'd like to be a part of. Never mind what LeBron James said after in terms of today. It might not be a failure in terms of the fact that they didn't all, blow out their knees and not finish the season, but come on, let's be real with what the expectations were, whether Russell Westbrook wants to admit that or not. They've won 1 ring there. It was in a bubble. The city didn't get to celebrate for it. And as a result, people kind of think this is all just a wash. That's perhaps a little bit unfair, but I'll tell you this. Frank Vogel is the last guy who needs to get the biggest part of the blame pie here because all he did was show up to coach and he managed to walk away with an O'Brien trophy. And now they dissed him on the way out. Not cool.
Tim Cowlishaw, how do you view the Lakers today?
I don't want to be unkind. LeBron's hard hat looked a lot like a pair of shades sitting on the bench at the end of the season. And I'm not knocking him for missing a couple of late games after they weren't going to go to the playoffs. But when you're not even a play-in team, when you're not in the top 10, when the Pelicans are going and Zion didn't play a minute this season, then it's probably some kind of degree of failure, even if you missed a lot of games with AD and with LeBron. And what LeBron won't own up to, because he kind of can't, is that the idea of Westbrook being the third wheel there was a failure, and that's something he was supportive of, and Anthony Davis was, and that's going to be a very difficult thing to fix moving forward.
Emily, you could talk about what happened, or you could try to do the fix going forward if you want, now that Tim's invited that. Frank Vogel's gone. I read a report today from Bill Plaschke. Maybe it's Doc Rivers. Read Shams Charania talking. Maybe it's Nick Nurse from Toronto, or maybe it's Juwan Howard. Go ahead, Emily.
All I know is whoever gets that job has a big mess to fill because they've got 7 players under contract next year for nearly $30 million over the salary cap, and they don't have their first-round pick until 2025. And really what this comes down to is Frank Vogel was always the scapegoat, and I really feel for him because if you think about it, they gave him a 3-year deal to begin with that was below market rate. Then he goes and wins a championship, and they give him just a 1-year extension, which to me is insulting. It just shows that they really had never belief in him, that he was a long-term solution. And then all year they do the will they, won't they fire him, and then to humiliate him last night on a night where it's late in the season. He's got young guys playing their butts off, Malik Monk and Austin Reeves having career nights. And instead of getting to talk about that and upsetting the Denver Nuggets in overtime, he has to be humiliated by reading a Woj tree and everyone knowing that he's going to be fired. I just think that's wrong. And none of the big issues with his team, the injuries, Russell Westbrook not being a fit, none of that was Frank Vogel's fault.
Do you think there needed to be more time for the 2-game tear they ended the season on, Emily? All right. Let's go to Pablo Torre here on the situation in Los Angeles.
I mean, Tony, Frank Vogel has been coaching for his job in the press since January. There was an athletic report that said Frank Vogel is coaching day to day for now 3 months. And so Frank Vogel, I take solace in this, he's unsurprised by how the Lakers did him because they've been trying to do this to him for a very long time. But the reason they did this in the way they did is because Rob Pelinka is not going to become the first executive in NBA history to pull out a katana blade and commit seppuku on behalf of the truth, right? Frank Vogel didn't get the players that he's coaching. Frank Vogel is one of the great defensive coaches in the league. That's how they won that title in 2020. He did not hire the players, and maybe Rob Pelinka's defense is that he kind of didn't either because LeBron James had more impact on the roster, as you said, 1,000,000 times than pretty much anybody else in NBA history. And so whose fault is it? Well, unfortunately, it's the fault of the guy who can be fired. Because Rob Pelinka ain't firing himself, and they can't fire the guys under contract still, so this is unfortunately very predictable.
We've been horned, and I say again, nobody wants to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. So just keep this brief, Clinton Yates. Where do they turn to for head coach? Where can they turn to?
Turn inward. You've got to find an actual GM that's running the team, that knows what they're doing, that can stand up to the players on the squad. I don't think Pelinka's that guy. 2 out of the last 3 coach exits have been under his watch. Not
Tim, I saw an eyebrow go up when I said Doc Rivers. I saw another eyebrow go up when I said Nick Nurse. I saw your whole head shake when you heard Juwan Howard. Please.
Both eyebrows on Juwan Howard. He might fit in as the power forward on a team with those guys, because he's about as good as what they have. Not sure about the coaching reins being handed to him just yet.
That is the rightful ending to that story. We're going to move on. The Masters. Let's talk the Masters. 2 months ago, Scottie Scheffler had 0 career PGA wins. The 25-year-old is now world number 1, 4-time tour winner, and Masters champion. Dominating performance. He could even 4-putt on 18 and still cruise to victory. Cowlishaw around the horn to you. How has Scheffler put it all together, and what does his major win mean?
Well, first of all, the young man touches all the geographical bases. Formative years in a leafy New Jersey suburb before growing up in Dallas with a golf club in his hand.
Yes.
Where have we heard that?
Yes.
Only he went to become something more than a 12 handicap. But I'll say this. Even though, what he's been doing is remarkable, I was hesitant to think of him as the number 1 player in the world, the way they've done the new rankings, because he didn't have a major championship. And he just put all those critics to shame. 5-shot lead through 36 holes. That allowed him to lose his driver for a little while Sunday and to 4-putt the last hole and still win by 3. He's going to be a factor for a long time. But we should have seen it coming when he beat John Rahm in the Ryder Cup.
We should have seen it coming. Where were we not seeing it? What was this we?
I didn't see it coming.
Thank you very much. Emily Kaplan on Scheffler's big breakthrough.
I think what he did is extraordinary. I mean, he's had 6 starts and he's won 4 of them. Even Tiger hasn't had a come up like that. And honestly, with someone like that, you're like, this kid must have ice in his veins, because he's a kid. He's really young. And that's why I think that his admission was so remarkable, that on Sunday morning he woke up with a panic attack and he had anxiety. And he said, am I able to win this? Am I able to carry all that happens with what happens when you win the Masters? And that was so real, because even for someone who life seems like it's easy for them and they're on top of their game, like, they still have those doubts. So I really loved hearing it. But my biggest disappointment, and he's a superstar, is that he didn't really honor his New Jersey roots, because he should have requested bagels for his meal, and that was a big miss on his part.
He'll have a chance to do that next year. Pablo Torre, do you have jokes, or you want to talk about the breakthrough of a 25-year-old here?
Yeah, I'm not here to mention that the 25-year-old could pass for 45. I'm not here to mention that Scottie Scheffler feels like an iBanker winning the Masters. All of that may be true, but I will also point out that the guy is on an all-time heater, right? We just haven't seen a run like this young. The fact that he is the world number 1 at this age, after being a guy who was forgettable, is mind-blowing. And he's kind of the reason why, we'll get to this, I presume, why Tiger Woods is not going to have the easiest time trying to win again. Like, this dude is the Terminator. And I don't know what we're going to see from him next, but at this pace, it's pretty much off the
So you
charts.
call him so you said he was on a heater, which to me made it sound like you were failing to call him the next big thing in golf. Then you called him the Terminator, which to me sounds like he is the next big thing. Clinton Yates, can you shed some light on what the last 3 panelists were trying to say?
No, they're making jokes about places, but the truth is that the bookending of Tiger and him was actually kind of cool, because you thought to yourself, as a casual sports fan, even a big casual golf fan, who is this guy? Why is he the one who's staying at the top of the leaderboard who nobody else can catch? Oh, wait, here are all these other stats that guys like, I don't know who, Tiger Woods, seem to be the only people on the list for. There was something kind of poetic about that. So when he came through in the end, I liked that, because we got to get the Tiger references that we needed to remember the past and the guy we saw walking on the course, and the young man fulfilled his dream. Good job, Eddie.
Walking on the course in Tiger's footsteps. Literally, he was wearing Tiger's shoes. Tiger wasn't even wearing Tiger's shoes this weekend. Said it was 2 months since he had this great run. Well, we know 14 months ago, Tiger Woods was in the wreck, pulled out in the jaws of life, was in the hospital, feared losing his leg. So for his Masters to go 71-74, make the weekend 78-78, the gratitude in his comments, if not in his pain face. Pablo, how do you view Tiger's weekend?
Tony, he was Wilbon walking around Augusta. Like, he was in pain, hunched over. This is not an easy thing in such a course like that. No, it's true. It's, doing one of these. And so what Tiger Woods is now, Tony, is a guy who benefited from the glory of low expectations. He was laughing after shooting a career-worst 78 on Saturday. We don't know this Tiger Woods. Now we're meeting him. The question is, if he wants to play the Open, the British Open coming up, how can he possibly sustain the good vibes here? Because it's so easy for us, Tony, to get greedy. I already felt it on Sunday. How is Tiger not giving us vintage Tiger? Well, it's because he's the guy who had bones on the floor of his car that had just crashed 14 months ago. We should probably remember that still.
Clinton Yates.
Are you implying, Pablo, that if Tiger plays, that people won't come? Listen, he's bringing the crowds. That's what he does. He's Eldrick Woods. The other point here was that watching him get through the course was actually a little difficult. As happy as I was for him to see him out there getting the cut, he was wincing in actual physical pain. And as a guy that's rooted for him for so long, that was actually kind of hard to watch. I'm happy he managed to get it through. I think Nan said at the end, he made it to the finish line, and there was a big sigh of relief, I think, for a lot of people when that happened.
Tim Cowlishaw.
I really thought the putting and the chipping would be the thing that would betray him, because when you haven't played in that long and you go play Augusta, it's so difficult there. But he was really fine. You look at Brooks Koepka, Xander Schauffele, who somebody might have picked, Jordan Spieth.
Thanks for reminding us.
Making the cut. And a 46-year-old Tiger coming off almost a 2-year layoff, just going out there and making the cut. This is one of the most improbable things he's ever done. And obviously he's done hundreds of them.
Emily Kaplan.
I found it inspiring to see him make this comeback, but also sobering, because it's still the same Tiger who says, I'm only going to enter a tournament if I think I have a chance to win. And after the first 2 days, did you really think he had a chance to win at all? I mean, this is a guy, we've talked about his leg. Clinton talked about how hard it was to watch him. He's a 46-year-old who's had 5 back surgeries. And if you think about when he won his first Master in 1997, John Daly was the only guy hitting it over 300 yards. Now it feels like every guy on tour averages that. If this tournament taught me anything, it's just that there's a reaffirmation that there's so many young golfers out there that can do it, and I just don't know if Tiger's ever going to be able to compete with them again.
Bring up how everybody on tour bombs it now. Cowlishaw, you said something before we sat down that I want you to say again on international television about the course at Augusta. Please go ahead.
I just think the technology of today's game has robbed the course of some of its charm on certain holes. On number 9, they don't even care where the trees in the fairway are. They bomb it down 370 yards to the bottom of the hill and make the whole course easier.
Has lost its charm. There goes Cowlishaw's invite to play. All right, the azaleas don't do it for you anymore. The corners don't amen no more.
I didn't see all the azaleas either. It wasn't quite.
Fire sells next before Cowlishaw gets thrown off the course here.
Get HD, Tim.
He's had a race to get to the 2 seed, which is fascinating, with Brooklyn locking it to 7. And Boston's win yesterday has them potentially matching up with the Nets. Philly's finish has them versus Toronto, with Tybalt not available in away games because of Canada's COVID mandate. West has been the same for the last couple of weeks, but Dallas saw Doncic strain his calf while finishing off their 4 seed. And the play-ins start tomorrow. Here's the matchups: Brooklyn-Cleveland, Atlanta-Charlotte, Mini-Clippers, Pelicans-Spurs. Clinton, what do you buy, what do you sell from the seedings and the matchups?
I'm selling most of it. This, at this point, is just a part of the NBA product that I don't really need. It first came along in the bubble in terms of a way to keep teams, involved and keep people interested. Late in the season, I find myself less interested in more things now. You got to change something to this, which is simple. If you're under 500, you shouldn't be in the play-in or the playoffs. It's as simple as that. I think there's just a little too many teams skewed along too far of a scale for this to be really that cool.
Tim, are you with Clinton here that the play-in lost its necessity?
Not at all. I like the play-in. I like the way it makes difference on where you get seated all over the place. But what I don't like, and nobody liked, was seeing Luka limping off in a game. The Mavericks were winning by 18 in a game where Golden State had a 20-point lead at halftime, rendering that Maverick game meaningless. And if he's really going to miss games or be limited, that's going to be a tough thing for Jason Kidd.
Emily, what do you buy or sell from the seedings?
Come on, if Luka would have scored 167 in that game, he could have won the scoring title. It was possible. I'm buying that Brooklyn once again is the most interesting team to watch, because you get the potential Kyrie revenge tour of playing Cleveland and then Boston, but also Ben Simmons. What happens with him is potentially high reward that he could spell Kevin Durant to some of those perimeter defensive assignments, but low risk because he's not going to be playing at the end of games because they don't trust him with the free throw.
But when you saw Boston win out like they did to get the 2 seed to match up against Brooklyn, was that wise planning, Emily, in your estimation?
Yeah, everything's wise planning.
Pablo Torre, how about you?
Oh, I would never have done that. I would have done what the Bucks did by putting on the books the fact that they don't want any part of the Nets, right? Tanking their last game of the season to avoid playing the Nets in that 7-8 seed matchup. And so for me, Tony, the thing I sell more than anything, though, is the Thybulle question. Matisse Thybulle, we went a whole year without knowing that he was unvaccinated, and of course the Sixers draw the Raptors. And I don't want to argue about the science of the vaccine anymore at this point. I just want to make very clear. This is what being a terrible teammate looks like. They're missing him for games 3 and 4 in Canada. This is a huge problem for the Sixers, a huge favor to their opponent. And that's indefensible to me.
I guess we brought up Boston, Jaylen Brown. If they would have fallen down to 4, they would have had the same issue with Jaylen Brown in Toronto.
Yes. Dodged a
Emily, you brought up the scoring race. Well, I want to talk about that a little bit because there are times when it's thrilling down the stretch. This year wasn't exactly that in the last weekend because LeBron, you knew, was out and didn't even qualify, and Giannis sat out, and Embiid sat out the last game. Joel Embiid wins the scoring title with the points per game. Trae Young actually had the most total points this season. But let me ask you, Tim Cowlishaw, with the scoring title now Embiid's, does that put him over the top for MVP?
I don't think it puts him over the top. I think it makes it a more even fight. I think the NBA is very analytics driven with the voters, and that's going to side with the gentleman from Denver. But having a better record, having a better seed in the playoffs, the scoring title, not having won it last year, those all favor Embiid.
Emily Kaplan?
Yeah, I mean, he's the first center in 40 years to average 30 points. That's historic. What I think voters are going to get hung up on is, oh, they had to bring in James Harden. But James Harden hasn't been very good since the trade, and Embiid's numbers have gone up in scoring and rebounding since Harden got there. So that puts him over the edge for me in MVP.
Pablo?
Yeah, I'm not going to cry if Nikola Jokic wins this award at all, but Joel Embiid also is a better defender than him individually. And I know Jokic has been very good on defense this year, but you cannot convince me that he is better at defense than Joel bleeping Embiid. So that's why I give him the nod on top of the scoring.
Is Embiid better than Giannis on defense?
That is closer, but Giannis isn't as good offensively this season.
Well, okay, by fractions of a point. Clinton Yates, how about you?
I think this is one of those things where the definition of value adds up to everything that everybody just said, which means he passes the eyeball test, and he's got the stats to prove it from a win and a scoring title standpoint.
Are you still with scoring points per game average, or are you with total points?
I think I'm with it more for rebounds than I am for points. I think the rebounding thing, it actually makes a difference.
There are so many years where there's a race to the end, and David Robinson scores 71 in the last game.
Right.
Or George Corbin, 6. Not this year. The guys were sitting out. Emily Kaplan, Tim Cowlishaw going to be sitting out showdown. Clinton Yates, Pablo Torre. A lot of thrills this weekend. But the number one headline, every player in the league, when they showed up to their locker and got a letter and a gift from Rob Manfred, a peace offering after the lockout. Do you know what the gift was, Clinton Yates, Pablo Torre?
Yes.
The gift was Bose headphones. Clinton, it's no longer buy or sell, but it's still buy or sell the commissioner's peace offering, Bose headphones.
I'm going to buy this as being completely tone deaf from a guy who does this all the time. There's no irony lost on me that he gave something to the players that allows them to cover their ears and not listen to anybody else. That's what his office does too.
Yeah, it's a cell phone. I mean, it's a cell phone. It's him stepping on a rake. Yes, the joke is, guess what? They've already canceled out the noise coming out of Rob Manfred's mouth, and now you're just validating that with a gift. Right. Congratulations.
Noise canceling headphones. All right, I get you both. You're both getting a point. Split it right down the middle. We'll move on. Showdown 2. 2 incredible moments from the weekend. Phenomenal reactions to spectacular paydays. Rory McIlroy, he said it was the most excited he's ever been on a golf course. Holding out on 18. Didn't win in the tournament, but locked him into second. The difference between second and third at the Masters is $750,000. Don't know what that reaction was, but that was exciting. And then in the NBA, Drew Holiday, the excitement of playing 8 seconds, where he then fouled and left the court and got his contract bonus for games played for the season, $306,000. So who should be more exciting? Have to do the work but shocking yourself for $750K, or not having to do anything but foul and play 8 seconds for $300, Pablo?
Has to be Drew Holiday. Remember how Drew Holiday's season ended last year, going from the NBA Finals right to Tokyo, then right back. He needed a break. He finally got a deserved one.
Clinton Yates.
Pablo knows full well what it's like to show up on this show for 8 seconds and cash a paycheck and do nothing else. But Rory, on the other hand, I thought he was going to rip his shirt off. He was so excited, he didn't even know what to do. That was great, man.
That is a great line from Clinton Yates. Should be said, Drew Holiday has been very, very giving with his salary in the past to charities and beyond. We'll give the FaceTime to Mr. Yates.
We've got something great coming back tonight here on this network, which is the WNBA Draft. For the first time since 2019, it's going to be live and in person on the orange carpet. The reason why this matters so much is because there's been so much growth of the WNBA in the last couple of years. For everybody to get to come together and do it all at the same time, it's fun. I can't wait.
Clinton Yates, today's champ. We'll see you tomorrow.